Before I answer that, remember when Christ was crucified there on the cross, and he said it is finished, and he died eventually, the veil separating the most holy place and holy place there in Jerusalem, the temple there, which the Israelis are trying to rebuild for the third time. They said there will be no peace on earth not unless we rebuild the temple of God. That's their belief. But according to Christ, there was a problem with all of it here on earth. That's why the manifestation was the veil was stripped. In other words, it's no longer binding. It's finished here on earth. We should look forward now to the antitype, the real thing, and no longer on the shadow. That's why in 10:11 he said, "And every priest stands daily at his service, offering repeatedly the same sacrifices." Okay, could you read this last sentence, please? Which can that was the problem. All those ceremonies, all those sacrifices, animals died, priests offered, high priest entering the most holy place, Day of Atonements, were nothing if Christ didn't die on the cross. They were all useless. That's why when the veil was stripped off, actually, for the first time they saw the most holy place. And they were crying, they were lamenting. Because for them, it's totally unacceptable. But for God, God was saying, don't mind the earthly sanctuary. Look up to heaven and see the real thing. That's why he said, but when Christ offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, those sacrifices in the Old Testament and the future, okay, confessions, will be forgiven by virtue of what Christ had done on the cross. In other words, Jesus is the center of history. Jesus is the center of the universe. And that's why He is the judge, and from His throne emanates judgment. He sat down at the right hand of God. What does that mean? Any clue? Any ideas? When He offered Himself as a perfect sacrifice once for all, He sat down at the right hand of God. What does that mean? Sitting at the right hand of God. What does it mean if you sit behind beside George Bush? What does it mean if you sit beside the Prime Minister of Japan or Queen Elizabeth there in England? It means authority, isn't it? It means power. And if you read along, then to wait until his enemies should be made a stool for his feet. This is judgment. When Christ sat down beside the Father, judgment began. The Father gave him all the authority for judgment, and judgment began. Now, what was that judgment? You know, Christ is no longer there on the cross, there inside the tomb. He is now in heaven, and He is doing judgment. And you can read that all over the book. That's flashes all over the book of Revelation and also of Daniel. And who was that judge who actually gave the vision to John there at Patmos? Said, I, Jesus, the Alpha and the Omega, the one who died and who has been resurrected. I am Jesus, I am the judge. Okay. And have sent my angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. Now, what was actually accomplished on the cross? This is very deep. Although it has a lot of theological implications and connections, by God's grace we can fully relate to this one this morning. What was accomplished on the cross? What really transpired there at Calvary? Okay, these are my propositions. based on the accounts taken from Revelation, Book of Hebrews, and Daniel. First, we are already judged and vindicated by the time we accept Christ as our Savior and remain in that belief. This is my belief. I don't know with you. That's why there will be outline that will be distributed later. It's up to you to examine, re-examine, research on this through your own time, at your convenience. That's why I've got here references from the Bible. I believe I'm already judged, and I have already been vindicated by God through the merit of His Son, Jesus Christ. Second, Christ has secured our place in heaven when He ascended back to the Father. You know the word there, intercede, actually in original, that means to secure. So when He went back to the Father, He said, you know, my believers, including the members there at OIC, I've already secured their place in heaven based on what I've done on their behalf. Third, you know, when He offered Himself as a sacrifice. Third, obedience to God's will is the compelling result of having full assurance of salvation. It's not once saved, always saved. Because you're saved, and then you're compelled. It's already within you. I will put my laws in their heart and in their mind. It's just your natural reaction now to follow His will, to follow His leading, because you already have this full assurance. It compels you. It's innate in you. It's natural to obey God, having that full assurance of salvation. And fourth, all will appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Remember last time when I discussed about Jesus being our substitute, which we're going to discuss later. And I'm going to elaborate the differences. All will appear, the wicked and the righteous. All of us. No one is exempted. Whether you believe God or not. Whether you have faith in Him or not, you'll be judged. Doesn't matter, you'll be judged. He who benefits from the blood of Christ will receive mercy and find grace. And the heavenly records will just affirm, take note, affirm our present vindication. This is my belief. I don't know about you. Perhaps you have your own belief, your own conclusions. This is just mine, according to my study. He will just affirm my present vindication. I'm already vindicated now. During the time, final day of judgment, he will just say, you know, Niki is already vindicated. In fact, he is now sitting as one of the judges through my merit. If you want to use the law, I've already obeyed the law for him. If you want to use the ceremonies, well, he already accepted me as his substitute. I am his sacrifice. I am his high priest. I am his advocate. And you know the good news is, I am also the judge. I am the one who decides. But what will happen to those who totally disregarded this truth? It's unimaginable. What's my part now in salvation? Christ? Who is Christ? I cannot accept him. He's just a carpenter. Those who totally rejected him. That's actually the context of Hebrews 4 and Hebrews 6. Read that.